Greetings to Southern California / Mexico history enthusiasts. We're so thankful that you came. You know what our feeling is? A cold audience is an audience that will stay awake during the presentation. That was our thinking about having it out here. But I'm so happy to be here. I'm embarrassed as a 50-year resident of Southern California that getting ready for this event, please take a seat if you would. Getting ready for this event was the first time I ever visited this place. And I had a 40-year career at NBC. I looked out my window years ago and I saw Don Pio Pico signing the autograph of the thing right in there. And I said, why is that man in a military uniform riding a donkey coming into the thing? And he signed the thing. So who knew there was such great history? But you're going to have a spectacular time. I don't know if you've had the pleasure of listening to Mark Wanamaker. There's not a human being on the planet that knows more about Southern California, Hollywood, San Fernando Valley history than this man. You will be dazzled. And they asked me to do a little historical primer, preparing you to hear the more in-depth history of our beautiful area. And it goes something like this. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, before Father Junipero Serra, there were the Chumash and the Tongva in our area. At the very beginning, there were literally 44 members of that first tribe. And one of those members was Bob Hope. Bob Hope went on to develop a sprawling rancho near the Lake of the Tolucas, a little bit east of there. Toluca means Lake of the Wealthy. His was the first rancho in the New World to have its own putting green. Hope later went on to license his name to Bob's Big Boy Restaurant, and the rest is history. Between 1830 and 1850, President Andrew Jackson cruelly started the Trail of Tears, and 3 tribes in our area were forced onto their own reservations. They were Disney, Warner's, and Universal. Business near the Lake of the Tolucas flourished. Some settlers felt that they just weren't paying enough for their goods at the supply depot, so they developed Trader Joe's along Riverside Drive. When the earlier residents realized that they could get gluten-free and organic food at Trader Joe's, covered wagon parking became very scarce along Riverside Drive, and we still haven't solved that problem. Through the Valley Ranchos ran a canal, an arroyo. It was just a rock creek in the summer and a drainage canal in the winter. But the city fathers realized it would boost real estate prices if they called it the L.A. River. And that's when they called it the L.A. River. On the north side of the hills west of Universal and Warner Brothers sits the site of the Battle of Barham, where in the 1970s, giant multinational conglomerates fought for control of the studios. That battle continues today. And just west of that same site, on the north side of the Hollywood Hills, is the site of the historic Oakwood Gardens. Years ago, it was built as a retreat for those newly divorced or in the witness protection program. It no longer exists. After the Civil War, the working class people of the San Fernando Valley needed a road they could use to get to their attorney's offices on the west side. So they dynamited the soft granite and built the Cahuenga Pass through the Hollywood Hills. That brings us to today, and this is quite serious. The reason why we're here this evening, those of us that live and work in this area understand the historic value of Campo de Cahuenga. It represents our history. It represents our roots. It's an invaluable teaching tool for school children that come here all the time, all year long. It helps us stay connected to our past. That's why tonight we are appealing to you to become a board member. We're appealing to you to make donations, because if we don't support this beautiful space, it will go by the wayside. There are developers right now sitting in cavernous skyscrapers, salivating, waiting for us to give up the ghost and abandon this site so they can come in, bulldoze it, put in a strip mall with a Panda Express, a Color Me Mine, a nail salon, and a Halloween store. We can't let that happen. We have to save this lot. It's very, very important. I mean, your children and your grandchildren will never forget it. It's my great pleasure now to introduce the chairman of the board of this fine organization to address you for a few minutes, Kerry Adams. Kerry, come on up.
Well, hello. I'm our interim president of our association. Hold on. I want to welcome everybody on behalf of the Campo de Cahuenga Historical Memorial Association. The ones that are around here with these little badges and lanyards are our board members, volunteers, what I like to call cheap labor, zero. I want to thank Councilman Gregorian, Paul Gregorian, who came tonight. And probably that dragster too. Also want to, of course, thank Fritz for showing up and helping us out tonight. It's a real pleasure to have him. He's a great entertainer and speaker and host. Our speaker is going to be Mark Wanamaker, who will talk to you about will be the main event tonight. Also want to thank Miranda McCord and her docents. Miranda's around here. For Parks and Recreation. We have tonight some honored guests. This poster board over here talks about our guests of honor. There's Guy and Diane Weddington McCreary. Diane's here. You can read about their contributions to the Campo. We also have Duke and Beth Perrin. I don't believe they made it tonight, but they were president over the years and secretary. And recently we lost a very valuable person. That was Richard Bogie. Richard grew up in Toluca Lake and unfortunately passed away last August. His brother, Chip Bogie, should be here. Chip is sitting right here. Thank you. These people all give immeasurably to our organization. More than most people realize. They've given financially in addition to their time and a lot of effort. And we really are lucky to have people that are dedicated to the Campo. They mostly ran our reenactment, which many of you probably recall, and I'll talk to about that later. Our association was founded in 1948. It's 75 years old. That's the year I was born, too. So our purpose is to preserve and advance the Campo. The items in here all belong to our association. The facility is gratefully maintained by Parks and Recreation. They've been really cooperative with us. We really appreciate it. But in addition to the artifacts and artworks inside, we have a library of books and other memorabilia. For many years, we sponsored the reenactment. Some of our reenactors are here tonight. They're hoping for to do it again next year, and that will be our purpose. Hopefully on either January 12th or 19th of 2025. Our whole purpose is to get to that point. But we've really got a loss lately. Between these people over here that are no longer in our association, passed on or whatever. This association may not be able to continue. And if we don't continue, we don't know what's going to happen with this collection. So what we need is people to come out and join our organization. We're looking at people who have interest in local history, but not just local history, but also living here. I'd say to somebody, well, how many people were here when it snowed in 1949? I was only a year old, but Mark was probably 2 years old. And or maybe you remember the freeway system being built, or you have knowledge about Universal or Hollywood Walk of Fame, or maybe you cruised Van Nuys Boulevard in high school after the football games, or maybe Sunset Boulevard, or you know about Pandora's Box on Sunset and Crescent Heights and the whole fiasco around that thing. You know, there's all kinds of living history experiences that people have, and we'd like you to come out, join our organization, put together presentations we can present to the public here at the parks, because the parks are with us and they've been very cooperative, and we want to use this facility. We don't want to lose it, and we don't want to lose the collection. We also have reference materials if you want to do anything historic about the area. So we need people like that, but we also need people with communication skills and media skills. people that may want to help us put together presentations, use multimedia, hopefully record some of these presentations and put them on YouTube or archive them so that we can keep the history of our area and community going. We hear a lot about other cities out in the east. We never hear much about LA, and we should make LA number one. So without further ado, I give you back to Fritz. Thank you. Oh, you take one of these forms. Geez whiz, I just lost the bloody thing. Here it is. If you're interested in our board and be involved, please take one of these, fill it out, and have a good night.
Thank you, my friend.
Let me get this stuff out of the way here.
Don't take my notes. These are, there we go.
Oh, that's yours?
There we go, yeah.
What about the money?
That's my,
Oh, okay.
that's my Braille notes there.
Okay.
Thank you, Kerry. Thanks for all the great work you do in preserving the Campo. All right, it's now my pleasure to introduce the lady that does all the legwork. She's in charge of this facility. She is the pilot light. She is the oracle of Campo de Cahuenga. And she works so hard and did just such a great job filling all these seats tonight. Please welcome Miranda McCord. Miranda? Yay, Miranda!
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Miranda McCord, and I'm the facility director here at Campo de Cahuenga. I work for Recreation and Parks. And first of all, I want to give all of you a hand because if you were born in Southern California, this is freezing temperatures for us. So it's very, very cold. And so thank you all for coming. Clap for yourselves real quick. Because, you know, if it's raining, if it's cold, I feel like that's when a lot of us don't come out. So I really appreciate seeing so many faces and having you guys, you know, come out and support our event tonight. So pretty much, you know, here at Campo, we're trying to get more people in these doors. We've had some school groups come through, some other kinds of tour groups. So always feel free to reach out to me. I actually have cards over here at the snack table. Max is sitting at the table tonight helping me out. So if you want my card, it has my email address on it and my city cell phone number. Call me, we could set something up. I just want to really get things going in here and just have people in here all the time, more than we already have. So again, just thank you so much for coming, and we have a great event for you tonight and some great speakers, so thank you very much.
You're the best, Miranda. You did a great job. Thank you so much. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce the president of our city council in Los Angeles. I want to tell you, this man is in my district, and nobody is more passionate about being an advocate for Toluca Lake and all the areas within his purview. This man does every event. They dedicated a fire hydrant last weekend, and this man was there and gave a 45-minute speech. It was unbelievable. I'll tell you, I have so much respect for him. He's an elected official that walks the walk. Paul Krikorian.
Thank you so much, Fritz, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. We don't have the reenactment, but it's so important that we come here every year to commemorate the most historic spot perhaps in the entire city of Los Angeles, right here at the Campo de Cahuenga. And I want to take a moment to thank the Campo de Cahuenga Historical Memorial Association. As Carrie described at the beginning, the work that the folks that are our honorees tonight have done for decades in preserving this historic location is absolutely invaluable. And we're all so grateful to the work of Diane and so many who have for many, many years preserved this history. And if you ever needed a very clear lesson in why it's so important to do that work, all you had to do was listen to Fritz Coleman's description of the history of this place. And no, you know, for the kids watching at home, for the record, none of that was true. So, as a meteorologist, Fritz is obviously much better at predicting the future than describing the past, apparently. So, but I have to tell you, this place is sacred ground, and as people drive past on Lankershim as people get off of the red line, as tourists arrive at the entrance of Universal City Studios, it's amazing that even people who've lived here their entire life have no idea what this building is. And I don't want to try to take the place of what Mark is about to tell us, but this place not only was the birthplace of American California, by the end of the hostilities at the end of the Mexican-American War, but it also set the foundation for what California would be, because the Treaty of Cahuenga was a treaty that not only ended the fighting, but it really laid a foundation for the Californios and the Americans to live and work together in peace. And the lessons that those visionary signatories of that treaty set forth is a lesson that we still learn from even today, well more than a century and a half later. So it's really important that we remember the importance of this place. And likewise, it's really important for any of you that have even the slightest interest in that, if you can help to do this work by being a board member, by being a volunteer for the association, by coming and helping Miranda out. It is an investment of your time that will pay tremendous dividends, not only to all of the people of Los Angeles, but I think to you as well, because this is really satisfying work when you see this. The city of Los Angeles has owned this property for 100 years. Since 1923, when the city purchased the property, and it was not recognizable then. The city invested in building this building, which was not the original building. The original building you can see the footings of here in the sort of archaeological area there. And the original building extends underneath Lankershim Boulevard, actually, and it's marked by specially colored bricks on Lankershim. So if you are here during the day and you can see that, you can see the actual footprint of the building. But this collection that's inside, the importance of this location, the importance of the educational activities that we have here during the reenactment, and thanks to Miranda's leadership now throughout the year when this is going to be open to people, is vitally important, because if we don't understand our history, we can't have any idea of how to manage the present, let alone plan for the future. So I really urge you, if you have any interest, please come and sign up and be involved. And I want to say a special tribute to our friend Richard Bogie, who passed, because every single year, if you wanted a person who personified passion about history, that was Richard Bogie. And every year when we would have the reenactment and he would tell the story in great detail to anyone who would listen of the entire history of this place, not just the Treaty of Cahuenga, but what came before, what came after. Richard knew it all and loved to share it and loved to teach and loved to preserve it. And so it was a great loss when he passed. But I just wanted you all to know that at Diane Weddington McCreary's suggestion, and I thank her for that, I've introduced a resolution in the council to name the intersection on Riverside Drive in front of Richard's office after Richard Bogie. So it'll be a way for us to remember his contributions to history as well. And by the way, there's big changes coming to the Campo. You can find out more about that as well. I won't take the time to do it now, but the city will be, we've been working for a number of years now in developing a plan to revitalize this facility. We're investing over $3 million in city money to try to begin the improvements here, to upgrade the systems here, to create teaching areas here, to do landscaping and other things, so that this really will be the place that we can really be proud of, a place that deserves that kind of treatment, and so that people, when they come here and the school kids come here, they really see not only a historical facility but a place where they can learn as well. So with that, thank you all very much for being out, and I look forward to you all coming back for the reenactment next year. Fritz, thank you.
The best, Councilman Paul Krikorian. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your support. All righty, now we're going to have some fun. Now, if you've been in CVS lately waiting for your booster or your RSV shot, like I have, you'll notice a rack full of these books. There are 20 different ones with a history of various sections of Southern California. Our guest tonight has authored all of these books and many more, and I'll give him his full introduction. But this one I purchased for him a little over retail, and it is spectacular. It's the history of the San Fernando Valley, and it is stuff that you thought you knew but didn't know. And the fun part about reading one of these books is you look at the photograph, and before you read the caption to see where it is, you try to guess where it is. And it's really fun, and it would be fun to do it with your kids. These are really beautiful, pardon me, easy to understand books. I love to look at the photographs and go, oh, that used to be a car wash. Now it's a weed dispensary. And you can look at all the... Anyway, that's just one of his many, many accomplishments. And now I'm going to give him his full introduction. If anybody has to use the bathroom, do it now, because this is going to take a while. Not really. He just has a lot of credits. Mark Wanamaker is the real historian. No one knows more about the history of California than this man. He's a renowned historian, archivist, and lecturer in film history. He's the founder of the Bison Archives, which manages research for the motion picture industry. He was on the AFI staff for years. He's written dozens of books and articles for the LA Times. He's one of the founders of the American Cinematheque, this great book I highly recommend to people of all ages. He really is wonderful. It's fun to just learn about the area in which you live, and you will just love him. Please enjoy the presentation of Mark Wanamaker, everybody.
The first thing, excuse me. I'm a theater major. Usually you don't use this. We project. But anyway, thank you, Fritz. I didn't know that Bob's Big Boy was named after Bob Hope. My God, that's something I never knew. Even though I ate with Bob Hope at Bob's Big Boy over the years, he never mentioned that to me. So anyway. So this picture here which is a picture of Jim Bowie. And, of course, I'm dressed as Jim Bowie tonight because I'm just kind of leading this out with the Battle of the Alamo was 1836. All of what happened here in California is a few years later. It was a major upheaval in all of the west of the United States at the time. So, look, let me give you a preface of why I'm so passionate about all this. First of all, I am a Californian myself, born in Echo Park at the Queen of Angels Hospital. You might know it. It's called the Dream Center today. And my parents came from Chicago after the war. My father was a doctor. My mother was a performer and an actress and all this in New York, etc. And here they come out here to California, to North Hollywood, for the GI Bill house that people got. And all of a sudden, as soon as I was about 7 years old, maybe earlier, 5 years old, my father's taking me to all these historic sites in California, Nevada. Yes, Virginia City, we went to Las Vegas, then all around California to the gold areas, all around, of course, the plaza, downtown, just everywhere. And I'm getting immersed in this history. And then at that time, around 7 years old, they sent me to a horse camp in Newhall. 7 years old, already learning how to ride a horse. Why would my parents do this? I don't get it. And then I think, there was a famous tailor by the name of Nudie. Maybe some of you might have heard of him. He was here in North Hollywood for years and years with a big rearing up horse in the front on Lankershim Boulevard. He supplied, of course, all the Western clothes for everybody and the Western stars from the 20s and on and on and on. Well, I'm looking at myself when I was about 7, 8 years old. I had the first Gene Autry cowboy outfit ever. I had cowboy shirts handmade. One said actually Bronco Billy on it. He was the first cowboy in films. And I'm looking at more things, beautiful jeans I had with rivets, with these stunts in them. And I'm wondering, my gosh. And then finally, because of my father, he had several patients. Who were these patients? You might know them. Colonel Tim McCoy. Does that ring a bell? He was a real colonel in the cavalry in the Mexican-American War, and he in 1898 period, and he was a Western star. But he was the one that brought the Indian tribes into the first films in 1923 as whole tribes, because he had the language skills and the sign language skills. So for the Covered Wagon, Paramount 1923, he brought in the Cheyenne, Arapahoes there together, or in the film. Then there was Ray Crash Corrigan. Does that ring a bell? Ray Crash Corrigan was a B Western star, Three Mosquitoes and other things. And he had a ranch out in Simi Valley called Corriganville. Corriganville was like Knott's Berry Farm. He had a Western town that Republic built for him out there. And by the mid-50s, he decided to open it up to the public so you could go on a tour. And they had a stunt show. Yes, little Mark was in the stunt show holding up these desperados, right? And then finally Walt Disney's daughter moved in next door to my house. And my father's putting around in the garden. Walt Disney comes up, finds out my father's a doctor, and that's it. They became friends. And they put me in he said, let's put Mark in the Mickey Mouse Club. But no, my parents did not want an actor kid. So guess what? They put me in the shows. So I was in Zorro. I was in Spin and Marty. I was in the Rin Tin Tin show. I was in all these shows. Some of these sets were at Corriganville. That's why I knew all these people. So then little by little, I was on the back lots of the studios. Disney back lot in Placerita Canyon, other places. I started to meet Jay Silverheels, Clayton Moore, Lone Ranger. I met all these other stars, Gene Autry, Roy Rogers. I met them all. So over the years, I kind of got away from all this. I became a musician, LA City College Theater Arts Department, Cal State Northridge Theater Arts. Little by little, got into being a researcher at the studios. I worked at all the research libraries at all these studios, all of them in the 80s, and learned all about every aspect of history you can imagine that was asked of us in these wonderful research libraries. And in them was the history of the film industry and the history of California. So I started to look into this, and then we got news that all the studios were getting rid of their research libraries. Isn't that wonderful? So my bosses said, look, you're interested, why don't you create your own research library? So I did. I created Bison Archives. In the libraries were the location department stills. Location departments, they shot stuff everywhere, of everything, all the historical places, homes and adobes, missions, whatever you want. So I gathered all of those, created location departments files, and other stuff, which led me, of course, to working on many documentaries and books relating to the subjects. So growing up here, working in the film industry, at Universal as well, right there, and just about everywhere, so I became a historian that specializes in real history and film history and how it intertwines. So my lecture tonight, which I'm going to tell you about now, is all of this, which relating to this place, relating to the film industry, which is mind-blowing, some of the things I found out. So let's get into it now. So, for example, this real history and film history and how they intertwine. Here we go. Universal City is right there, right? Which was established across the street in 1914. Now, originally, Universal opened in 1912 at the Providencia Rancho. What is that? The Lasky Ranch, as it became known, is where Forest Lawn is, across from Warner Brothers. That's where Universal first went, the Providencia Rancho, which was part of the ex-mission ranchos of Rancho San Fernando and San Gabriel. They were all sharing these rancho lands until 1834, when it was all ended. So that's where they formed Universal City. Universal City is really a publicity tool in which North Hollywood was really the legal entity of a city, but Universal became a publicity city. So they had to have a mayor, and they had to have a police chief, and all this stuff. They had elections. But who was elected? Stars and others who were Universal stars. So the first mayor of Universal City in 1913 was Lois Weber, one of the early female directors in Hollywood. Who was the police chief? Are you ready? Are you sitting down? Yes, you are. Was Laura Oakley. Who was that? She was an opera singer. 6'1", big woman. But she wanted to be a police chief, and she was elected police chief of Universal City. She had to be accredited by the LAPD and the LA County Sheriff. The reason I know this is her granddaughter contacted me years ago. She had her uniform, her badges, and all of her accreditations, all of her paperwork and everything. And my mind was blown because she really was a police woman, a police chief. And she happens to be the very first police chief, female police chief in the United States, trained by Alice Stebbins Wells. Who was Alice Stebbins Wells? The first police woman in the United States in the late 19th century. So you see how the film industry and real history is getting here, right here, across the way. The reason that they needed a police department is because of the LA River. The LA River had no boundaries at that time. There was no cement in there. It was a no man's land. There were shootings, murders, bodies, all kinds of people living in the river. I mean, washing their clothes, using it as a toilet. It was a mess. So the city made sure that Universal patrolled that river and made sure that it was clean and safe. Would you believe this? We're talking 1914. 13 and 14, excuse me. So, at this time, 1914-15, there was the ruined foundation of Campo de Cahuenga sitting right here on this dirt road, which was Lancashire Boulevard. And this was all part of the entranceway, this area here, to Cahuenga Pass. This was a Butterfield's stage stop. And we have a wonderful map inside showing you the Butterfield's route. Incredible route. Stopped here. Some of these experts I know on the history of the valley told me that this was, we know already that this was part of the rancho. That we have the names of some people that had this rancho. But this was also used as a kind of like a post, for commerce coming through the Cahuenga Pass. So this was an important site for the connection between the basin and the San Fernando Valley. It wasn't until 1913 that they actually put in the Pacific Electric trolley car through. So when the Squaw Man was done, the first feature length film made in Hollywood by the Lasky Company, I'm plugging now the Hollywood Heritage Museum, which I am a curator of. Yes, we have some Hollywood heritage. Well, that old barn, the old Lasky DeMille barn, was located at Selma and Vine Street, but the Squaw Man was made mostly in the San Fernando Valley, in Sun Valley, which was known as Roscoe at the time. So the DeMille Company, Cecil B. DeMille directed the film. They would get on a trolley car from Selma and Vine, go over the valley, come over to the train station at right over here somewhere, and get off, and then get on to another. Oh, they went to Chatsworth Station. Not Chatsworth, I'm sorry, North Hollywood Station. And then from there, they go up to Roscoe, which is Sun Valley, and that's where they made a lot of the Squaw Man. So the Squaw Man is important as well because it starred the first Native American actress, Princess Redwing. She was a real Winnebago Sioux Indian. So we have many, many different things. And we also have Noble Johnson was in it. He played an Indian. Noble Johnson is really the first black star in America. It goes way back. He did like 400 films, and he formed his own film company called the Lincoln Motion Picture Company. So you follow me on this? We have film history already merging in with the history of California. Now, when the industry came here, they came here in 1908. It was the Selig Polyscope Company that came here to Edendale. If you know where that is, that's North Los Angeles. That's where Glendale Boulevard is, where the 2 freeway kind of merges down into Echo Park. That's where the first studios were in LA before they merged out to all around LA. Mr. Selig had a deal with Charles Lummis. And some of you might know who that is. He was our first California historian. He considered himself a Californio. He dressed as a Don, and he built his house in Highland Park out of adobe. And the Southern California Historical Society used to be there at one time. And all I know is that they made a deal because he wanted to restore the missions and adobes. And this is in 1908, 1909. So the Selig Company was the first studio to put up money to pay a permit to film on mission property, to help restore the missions, to restore California history. So we have that going on. Then we have, at this time, the public was really interested in early California history. So through Charles Lummis and Selig, they designed the studio as the San Gabriel Mission. Exactly like the mission, with mission bells, mission arches, the whole works. Studio designed as the mission. And what were the first films? About Rancho life, about the life of 1830s and 40s in California. Hobart Bosworth, one of the very first actors in film, starred in these films. And he played Padres, he played Dons, he played Vaqueros, he played everything, Indians. And they shot on these mission properties. I have always was looking at historical aerial shots of this property to see if there was any remnant of those, foundations. Unfortunately, no aerials before 1916. So all this was gone since then, but I'm still looking to see if any remnant of a film shot here at that time, 1908 or 9. I wonder. I'm still looking. Now, we are gathered here today to remember, how this state of California came to be. And this is, as was mentioned earlier by Mr. Krikorian, I mean, this is a very historic spot, other than the Pueblo itself, the missions, and the plaza, and some of the adobes left around town, and also the ranchos, Rancho Dominguez. We have the Workman Temple work site. We have Andres' Pico's house. We have stuff still here, and we have interested people like all of us who are kind of watching over this and trying to get younger people interested in all this. So we are here because of this signing of this treaty. The treaty is very important. This treaty here was signed January 13th, 1847. So I just mentioned the Alamo was 1836. That's only about 10 years before. When Texas was going to be a republic, California, was going to be a republic. Of course, short-lived republic, of course. Anyway, so this treaty ended the fighting during the Mexican-American War, which ended the fighting in Alta California. This was Alta California. And this was important because these were steps that led to this treaty, which was drafted in both English and Spanish. And guess who drafted it? One of the major people that drafted the treaty was Jose Antonio Carrillo. Who is that? That's Leo Carrillo's great uncle. Who was Leo Carrillo? Some of you know who he was. He was, of course, Pancho and the Cisco Kid. Pancho, Cisco, Duncan Ronaldo. I watched this on TV. I wanted to be in that show, but I never made it into the Cisco Kid show. They lasted 60 years. They did several years of feature films, and then from 50 to 56 did a whole bunch of TV shows and not serials, but TV series. Anyway, Leo Carrillo's family goes way back to the Portola expedition in I forgot what that date is, 64? 69, thank you. But his family were governors, were mayors, were everything in the 18th century and early 19th century periods, and Leo himself was so proud of this history, and he and the sheriff Biscaluz, who was Hispanic as well, they both were on committees and on chairmanships. I mean, we have Leo Carrillo Beach. We have a whole bunch of places that Leo Carrillo helped establish, the state parks, including the Anza Borrego State Park was through him. I didn't even know that till recently. Why is Anza Borrego? That's Salton Sea. That's where Anza expedition came up. So we have all these expeditions. I have a whole bunch of them from the 1500s, 1600s, 300 years of exploration of this whole area. And the indigenous peoples were all intertwined with this. I read the actual daily report of the both Anza expeditions and who they met, where they went, everything. It's the most fascinating thing you ever read. I also have with me, so I'm just going to hold it up for you. We have the Fremont expeditions. Fremont did 5 expeditions in the West, but the ones he did here were 3 of them into California. This is an original journal that Cecil B. DeMille had from 1845, the exploration expedition of the Rocky Mountains in the year 1843 to Oregon and northern California, except in the second expedition he actually came down here. And that's gotten involved in this Mexican-American War, and that's how we have Fremont here. So anyway, that's the Treaty of Cahuenga. All right, so we have Carrillo as being one of these people. And as Mr. Krikorian said, the treaty here provided that those Californios who wanted to be citizens of the United States were allowed to return to their homes and ranchos and were given the same rights and privileges as citizens. About a year later, on February 2nd, 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed, which Mexico formally ceded this Alta California to the United States. But many of these people who were actually fighting against the United States became citizens of the United States with all these privileges, which led to what we have now, right? It's this cooperation, feel of cooperation. Now, the film industry connection, first one is Leo Carrillo. I mean, he was the sidekick. He was Pancho, as I told you, and all this. And, 1769, Portola expedition, right. Now, what is the importance of this event? Guess what? It's 177 years ago. So it was mentioned that many of us born in 1947, 48, just think about that. It's only 100 years before we were born when all this was going on. 100 years. My mother was 98 years old. So if you put it in the context of things, that's not a long time ago. It seems like a long time ago, but it is not a long time ago. Now, in 1834, this is when it all started. Between 1834 and 1850, when it became a state, it's only 16 years. And all this turmoil going on. I did a timeline. It's a 3-page timeline, which I'm not going to bore you with tonight. But it is so complicated. Battle after battle, change went on here like you wouldn't believe. And how it became a state is a miracle of how this happened. So in 1834, the mission properties were taken over by the Spanish-Mexican government and secularized, starting the Mexican period. Now, the Mexican period of government broke up all these mission properties, made ranchos out of them, and these ranchos became the time of between 1834 and, say, 1840s was the Zorro period. Okay, those of you that like Zorro, have you even heard of Zorro? In Spanish, it's the fox. And, of course, I was in a Zorro. Okay, so I met all those people. We shot it on the back lot of Disney, which is right over here in Burbank. And, yes, we shot. That's where the Pueblo of Los Angeles was built, by the way, in the back lot of Disney in Burbank. And I was a little peon kid wearing a little serape and a little sombrero and with walking around aimlessly, I think. I'm trying to find myself, but I don't know where I am there. But anyway, the whole period of the Zorro thing is, well, first of all, First of all, I used to race at Lions Drag Strip, and that's what it sounded like. In El Segundo. Remember, I was born here. I was an American Graffiti kid. Yes, I went to Bob's Big Boy and Tiny Nailers looking for girls, okay? So there you go. Okay, now, the period of Zorro. American writer Johnson McCulley wrote this story in 1919. And what was it about? It was really about a masked vigilante that helps the people. Even the Rancho people, the indigenous Indians there at the time, the peons who worked in the fields, whatever, he helped them. Why? Because the Mexican government on this area would constantly be at their throats with one thing or another. And that's why the rebellion started, because of all this. So he writes this story, and he writes in 1919, but in 1920, Douglas Fairbanks, you might not have heard of him, he was our first superstar in Hollywood, did The Mark of Zorro in 1920, which became a super sensation. Oh my God, it's a great film. It's available, you must see it. Later, Tyrone Power did the 1940 version for Fox, wonderful version. And basically, he runs around and helps. And then Antonio Banderas did the 2, that was recently, which was excellent movies. So it shows you what was going on. And all of this discord that Mr. What's his name again? McCulley. Yeah, what he was talking about actually did happen. There were a lot of trouble going on during this Rancho period. Now, in 1845, the Californios and the government went to war against each other with the Battle of the Providencia. This resulted in self-rule of these Californios, and who was their first governor? Pio Pico. Okay, and we all know Pico Boulevard. We know the Andreas Pico was his brother, who was a signatory to these treaties, who lived right up by the mission. His house is still there. You must visit Andreas's house. It is fantastic to visit. On my trips all through California, I go all over California because of all the books I've done on this subject, and I've been to all the ranchos that are existing, and I work with these people on what films might have been shot on these old rancho properties. So it's to make all this relevant to you. It's about the film industry, depicting all this in films over the years, as we'll get into it. Now, Zorro, we're done with that. So now, May of 1846, the United States declares war on Mexico, which started this Mexican-American War, which included Alta California. Beginning in July through December, there were 4 major battles between the California forces and the United States. By December 27th, John C. Fremont of the California Bear Flag Battalion, who are they? They were a bunch of American settlers who wanted to buy land up in Northern California and farm it and all this, but the Mexican government wouldn't let them do it. The rule was you had to marry into a Mexican family to own any land at all, and they rebelled. And they decided, we're going to start a republic. We're going to start our California as a real state, as a country, just like Texas. Remember, Texas was doing this already. They knew about all this. They were going to have their Battle of the Alamo as well, these people. So they marched into California and raised the American flag. Now, in early 1846, all this was like gelling and more going on, because this war is going to start to begin with the Mexican-American War. And by 1847, the next year, there were 2 more battles. On January 13th, when the Treaty of Cahuenga was signed, that ended the hostilities, as we say, but on January 14th, Fremont went all the way down to San Diego and handed Commodore Robert Stockton this treaty that was signed right here. And that was it. That was settled there. So that helped later with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo to settle the whole thing once and for all. But now we have January 24th, 1848. What happened on January 24th? The gold rush. The gold was discovered by James Marshall at Sutter's Mill. Yes, Mark panned for gold at Sutter's Mill at Coloma at least 4 times. Yes, I found a little gold, that much. But it didn't matter. Here I was putting my feet right there where the Sutter's Mill was and panning like they did. It's a thrill. So if you know the history and you go to these sites, it's exciting, right? It gets you excited. So anyway, okay, as soon as that happened, the word went out. Do you know that just within a year or so, 300,000 people swarmed here? A lot of them came by ship around the Horn, would you believe? And when they got to San Francisco Harbor, there were like 100 ships, in the harbor. Guess what? All the crews and captains went AWOL, left their ships sitting there and went to the old gold fields. So guess what? All these ships are sitting there, right? So one of these entrepreneurs, this Jewish entrepreneur who was a tailor by the name of Levi, came to San Francisco at this time to figure out what he's going to do. He's going to make clothes for the miners or something. And the miners keep coming to him with torn pants. So he had these Chinese workers working for him, and one of their trusted Chinese guys says, there are all these sails sitting on all these ships. So they grabbed the sails, which was a thick, cloth, and made jeans out of them. And they still ripped at the pockets right here, right? So guess what they did? They riveted them. Started Levi's. Now what happened to those ships? They started to bring some of them onto the shorelines and made an artificial harbors, an artificial land out of them. So about a few years ago, they were building a big skyscraper, and they found 3 ships about 40 feet down. And they figured, what are those ships? Well, those are the ships. They made houses out of them. So you see, this whole gold rush thing is happening right at the time of this signing. And I mean, it's mind-blowing this all happened. So Universal did Sutter's Gold in 1936, and it was a fictionalized account of the discovery of gold of Sutter himself, played by Edward Arnold. It's a good film, by the way, a Universal film. And the sporting cast included Lee Tracy, Benny Barnes, and Harry Carey as Kit Carson. Kit Carson was the guide for Fremont in many of his expeditions here. Okay? Now, only a month later, on February 2nd, 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed by representatives of Mexico formally ceding Alta California. Now get this, only in October 13th, 1849, that's just a short time later, the Constitution of California was created and signed by representatives of the American pioneers, European settlers, and Californios. And then shortly after that, on September 9th, 1850, California was admitted as a state. Now you see what happened here at Campo de Cahuenga. This was not only important to the establishment of the state of California, my gosh, but it's unified the United States. How? Because in 1869, not too far after, was the meeting of the rails in Promontory Point, Utah, when the Central Pacific and the Union Pacific meets, creating the real conduit for growth of the United States. So, and all this was in a short period of time. I have to plug my book. I did a book called The Hollywood Trains and Trolleys. It's all about the formation of the Los Angeles transportation system, movie industry, and all of it's connected to recreating all of this in films. So the meeting of the rails was recreated in Canoga Park by Cecil B. DeMille for Union Pacific. And guess what? That was when was the Union Pacific? 1940? I think it is. So the point is, that's when Union Station opened. So guess what? They connected the premiere of Union Pacific, the film, and the opening of the Union Station, and they had 20,000 people showed up, and they had all the trains there. The first train that Huntington brought down here from the mid-California, and they had them all there parading down Alameda Avenue. And Cecil B. DeMille was there with the stars, again, linking real history to film history, and all linking it back to this treaty and the forming of California. So thank you very much. That was as concise as I could put it.
You have a lot of stuff in that hat. Now let's ask a couple of questions. Anybody have a question? I have a question. So what was Zorro's Spanish name?
I do know.
Don Diego. That's what Leo Carrillo got. Yes, Don. What? Okay, well, don't get technical with me. Stand up a minute, my darling. Look, this woman is the woman that plays the Doñas, and she knows almost as much about California history as Mark does, and she looks beautiful. And go up and just look at the handiwork. She makes her own outfits, which almost, yeah, no. And just imagine being July 15th at the end of the Mexican-American War, and you had to wear that. No wonder people said, let's just sign a treaty and get it over with and find some shade. That was unbelievable, my friend. Mark Wanamaker, everybody. Folks, you've been fantastic. You've been patient and wonderful, and I hope you were interested. I'm going to bring Miranda back up here just for some closing announcements.
Hello again. So just letting you know, thankfully because of Councilmember Krikorian, we're open 3 days a week now, hoping to open more. Yes. Prior to the pandemic, we were open twice a month, but now we're open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 10 to 2. So, and hoping to open more in the future. So I hope that you will come by, visit us. Even if you just want to enjoy the grounds, come here, read a book, that kind of thing. And I think that's all I wanted to add, just to make sure to come visit us. Thank you. Oh, and thank you to everybody. Thank you to Fritz. Thank you to Mark. And to the Historical Association. They've been wonderful to work with. So thank you to all of them.
Yay, Happy New Year, and be safe going home, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.